Motion.
Give me 1 second, I want to look at one thing, Mr. Chairman. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are adopted. Item number 1 under new business, Councilman Crowe, disbursement from District 3 Improvement Fund of Vernon Elementary for new basketball goals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to allocate $4,000 of my district improvement funds to help Verner get new basketball goals. That includes some motors to lift them for the teachers, but it's a pretty expensive project. I just wanted to put a little money toward it.
Any comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay,
John.
item is approved.
That'd be bad.
Next, something we don't do or get to do as often as I would like, and I've really put some blank space on here so that we can have some discussion. Mayor, I know you got a short presentation to make as a piece of that. What was in my mind when I put it on there is we know, I mean, you've already telegraphed out to us and their staff as well. We know it's going to be a hard budget season. We know there's going to be belt tightened involved. What I'm hoping to do today is for us to get our arms around what magnitude that is and what the components driving it are between SSUT, RSA, the rest of the alphabet soup. So that's kind of the things we want to look at. But I know you've got put together some comments up front. Let's take a look at those.
Well, and Mr. Busby, I want to say that myself, Ms. Standridge, and the entire team appreciate this opportunity. Too oftentimes you get handed a budget, and which is the what, but there's not a lot of discussion about the why.
The why.
And I think having this discussion months in advance of that budget submittal is going to be good for all of us. So I did outline really 3 things I want to touch on. It'll take about 5 minutes. First, kind of talk about the strengths of where we are, talk about what I see are the liabilities, not only for fiscal year 26, but really for the remainder of this decade that we will need to work through, and then talk about some short-term solutions that you're beginning to already see. And that you will likely see in whether it's my capital budget that will be recommended on the 22nd or the operating budget that will be recommended sometime mid to late August. So first, let me talk about strengths. First, as it goes about saying, the city's financial management is elite, and that's evidenced by our AAA rating. You will also see in our most recent audit of our fiscal 24, the city's fund balance grew by $3.1 million. From $76.4 million to $79.5 million. And I'm going to send you a copy of my notes. So please don't grade them on grammar. They're notes, but it will kind of give you, it's the outline of what I'm discussing with you today. The general fund surplus transfer this year is $19.1 million, which is after the 20% code required set aside to reserves. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll have $19.1 million to spend, because we always forward a portion of that to meet what we think is next year's set-aside amount. And we will go in more detail about that on August 22nd. We will likely have somewhere about $14.5 to $15 million to spend of that $19 million transfer. The liabilities that I'm about to talk about are not going to impact these projects that I'm about to outline. The transition from Police and Fire Pension Fund to the Retirement Systems of Alabama, MLK Phase 3, Savings Center, Northern Riverwalk Phase 2, Belk Center, education initiatives that we certainly have in place like dual enrollment, pre-K, athletic excellence, the University Boulevard Corridor Project, both Alberta and not all of downtown, but big sections of downtown, and the Encore Incentive Agreement. So just kind of give you the things we're about to face, because the way the city does budget and approach budgeting, we're in good shape to complete those things, to get them through to the finish line, and then to operate or maintain those things once they come online.
So the first sentence, you said the things I'm about to name do not impact
should not.
The upcoming budget that we're preparing, is that right?
They will not impact our ability to accomplish them. And we can, and this is something
ahead.
we can certainly go into more detail. And a lot of that has to do with, for example, there's been a great deal of planning on the transition, as y'all have seen, to the Public Safety Fund to help us ease into the transition of RSA. Elevate is certainly a big key for us with the Savings Center and the other projects. And the thing that's really worked well with Elevate is that 15% set aside that we put in place, not only for the capital costs, but the O&M related to it. So we believe that barring an economic collapse, we're going to be able to accomplish those things moving forward. But, and this is where the city really, and I've got to give Ms. Standridge and her team, and really the city's, the entire team credit. We don't look at 1 year. We tend to look at 5 to 10 years out. So that's why we're in very good shape to accomplish those things. But knowing that's our modus operandi, we have to acknowledge some very disturbing trends. And so let me talk about the disturbing trends that set up this budget dynamic that you're going to begin really seeing us key on, and which is why we've already started making decisions in advance of the fiscal 26 budget to get ready for. First is SSUT is estimated to redistribute to other local governments in Alabama 6.4% of the city's sales taxes in this fiscal year, which we believe comes up to $14.6 million. In 26, that number will climb to over $16 million. So if you think about the city's budget, just imagine 6.4% just basically evaporating. It's not fair. It's certainly not fair to our citizens, our employees, to you in this room as decision makers. But until SSUT is solved, the reality is the economic growth we have in this community, 6.4% of those that translate into sales tax revenues are being exported out. The second is the economic slowdown, which could possibly take months to unwind. And there's really 3 layers that we're seeing. One, Christmas sales taxes were down. The city's collection of city sales taxes during Christmas was down 4%. I think certainly some of that's SSUT related. But I do think other parts of that we have to acknowledge there is a slowdown in our economy. And as we look over the horizon, although this is not necessarily a fiscal 26 issue, this does become a fiscal 27, 28, 29, 30 issue. And that is tariffs and how could they impact MBUSI. A large portion of what MBUSI does is exported back out. It doesn't all stay domestic. So there's even the discussion of it slows down things. And when you slow down things, those have economic impacts. So the best case scenario is that it comes out well. Worst case scenario, obviously, is that it reshapes the entire market. I don't think if you hit the worst case scenario, it's an evaporation overnight. I don't think it's something that just, all of a sudden you lose thousands of employees. But I do think that is something we have to continue to watch and understand and not be naive that even the discussions of this have impacts. And when you have a supply chain that stretches from Mexico to Canada to China to Western Europe, there is a lot of complications in this. And then you think about the number of suppliers. It certainly doesn't mean you hit the panic button. But to think that the talk of tariffs doesn't have a local impact in Tuscaloosa County, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, would be naive. And we need to realize that what we've counted on may not be that way over the next 10 years. So that's one, that's another. So you got SSUT, you have slowdown in Christmas sales, you have the tariffs, and there's another one we need to keep an eye on. For the last several years, we have really counted on the move into knowledge and technology-based jobs being the Alabama Water Institute and what they've done with USGS and NOAA. You've certainly seen through the headlines that those programs are certainly being examined and the future of those programs are being decided. Those could have impacts right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Now, we certainly hope they will not have impact, but hope is not a strategy. So whether it's tariffs or what we're seeing at the federal level as it relates to research, to water and the Water Institute, it would be malpractice for the city not to begin adjusting its budgets just in case that slowdown will occur in 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So the last liability that we've got in this perfect storm of liabilities that is on the horizon is the transition from the Police and Fire Pension Fund to RSA. The transition cost we normally have bookmarked at $10 million new dollars a year. That number, we were hoping it would go down a little bit, that liability would go down, thinking because we thought the stock market would probably improve. That hasn't happened yet. So if the valuation of the Police and Fire Pension Fund's asset continues to decrease, by the time we make that conversion in fiscal 27, that number of 10 million could be 11, could be 12. And certainly after this is done, Ms. Andrews can speak to any of those questions regarding how the actuaries look at it. But knowing what we're seeing on the market side, I think we have to be, again, from a budgetary standpoint, very cautious about what that valuation could be when we enter year one into RSA on October 1st, 2026. Let me be absolutely clear. We are moving to RSA to our police officers and firefighters. When we have discussions like this, the rumor button all of a sudden gets hit, and we're moving in that direction. But that means if we're moving in that direction, we have to, especially if revenues are decreasing, we have to reduce our expenditure portfolio so that we're in good shape. So, short-term solutions. I have 7 to throw at you today. Doesn't mean they're perfect. Doesn't mean in the end we'll be able to do them all, or that it's exhaustive. There could be others out there that you may have, or team may have. So let me outline the 7 that I have today that we're working on. One is utilize attrition to reduce the number of personnel. You've seen a few personnel moves we've been making. As we continue to have vacancies, we're going to look to see, can we reduce a position? But our hope for employees is maybe if we can reduce a position, consolidate some job duties, we can actually give an employee a pay raise. So you may cut 2 positions, pay another employee more to get the same amount of work done. The second is we want to approach the council regarding a third-party contract to review the feasibility of reducing review the number of positions we have at the city, asset management, and contract oversight. We need to take a good look, and I think it's very important to have a third-party person do that at our personnel management, at our asset management, at our contract oversight. And so I really believe that this is an opportunity to take advantage of what we're facing. We can't ask others to do more if we're not willing to do it ourselves. And so, in the near future, I think on the 22nd of April is our goal, maybe the 29th of April, is to come to you with a recommendation on how to make that happen. We are reviewing the feasibility of reducing or eliminating certain city services and events. Again, to keep our core responsibilities in place, there's a lot of things we do for the community that we're the only ones in the community that fund. So, knowing that we're leaning into being Tuscaloosa first, you're going to see us really explore that. The fourth is evaluate where AI and other technologies can reduce personnel cost. You have been part of some discussions where you can see the power of what AI brings. Mr. Moore sent me a copy of an article, I think it was from the Wall Street Journal, where a technology firm, their first question in an interview is, tell us how AI is going to be replacing your job in the future. The fact of the matter is that different types of artificial intelligence technologies are going to reduce the necessary footprint of employees that you need. You were sent an email last week where a recommendation that I'll likely be making in the fiscal 26 budget is utilizing the technologies that we have to be able to reduce a cost of a division, which will likely save us well over 6 figures a year. I suspect we have more of those opportunities. I know you will see a few more recommendations like this where we can use those advancing technologies to reduce our overall cost. The fifth recommendation that we've got to have, and this is really something I'm going to ask the council for help, because ultimately you're the ones who are the appropriators of this, and that's require especially the significant major agencies and authorities that we fund to take the same approach we're taking at this day and hour.
Amen.
It is, for me, and y'all hear this every year, my responsibility, my primary responsibility is working with the 19 department heads. They're all going to be making reductions. I believe the major agencies that we fund should have to do the same things that we're asking ourselves to do. I hear a lot that, well, we create money and we do this and we do that, and I'm not saying those things are not important. They are. But are you looking at technology? Are you looking at what services do you provide that are not used? Are you asking yourself the same hard questions we're asking ourselves? And we need to be asking ourselves these hard questions. So we're going to ask the same. And Mr. Busby, I want to thank you for adding to the agency funding contract a request on salaries. I can't tell you, there was a collective cheer for you at City Hall when we heard that you added that.
That's rare.
Yeah. We actually recorded it for you. We'll send it over to you, Mr.
I think
Busby.
that's only fair.
I do too.
I do too, because all the city employees' salaries are there to be seen.
It's transparent.
They're there to be seen, and
I wish they weren't sometimes.
yeah. Well, and part of the third-party contract, let me go backwards, Mr. Tyner, is that if you're an exempt employee, that means you're not a 40-hour-a-week employee. If you're an exempt employee, we pay you a really good salary to execute your job. And whether that's if you have to work late or you have to work weekends, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I know I'm Generation X. That is our bargain. And that's, as we do this review, we're going to be making certain that that is enforced at every level. You as a council have done very well by us city employees. You really have. We should be out there earning it every single day. And so that's one of the things we're really going to be focused on. And I think the vast majority of our employees are, but where they're not, you need to be put on notice. And for our non-exempt employees who are working so hard every day, we want to make certain we're giving them the tools to be successful and the leadership they deserve every single day. So next, we're going to freeze all non-water sewer capital projects that are in the conceptual phase. It doesn't mean they won't happen, but if you're in this conceptual phase, we just need to freeze. That helps us on our 10-year budget plan. It helps us slow down and really focus more internally. And if we're reducing our footprint, it just may be, frankly, we can't stretch ourselves that much more thin. It doesn't mean they go away, but you're going to see that. A really good bit of news for you, though, is water and sewer is doing very well. 4 years ago, we were kind of in this situation of water and sewer. And this council, you guys made some very difficult but necessary decisions and put us in a good place. In many ways, this reminds me of where we were, sans the SSUT dynamic. And the last thing is we have, Mr. Busby, is continue efforts to reform and fix SSUT. If we received the sales taxes we earned, our general fund financial picture would be diametrically different. And we need to do everything necessary in the city's interest to do that. And let me extend that also to our school system. Whereas we're losing $14.6 million this year, our school system is losing nearly $5 million this year. So there is, with SSUT, that is why it's our greatest threat. Mr. Busby, I appreciate you giving me this much time, and hopefully that gives a shape of the dynamics. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know Ms. Standridge and our team will be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. And
I'm going to send you my notes.
I hope we have some discussion and questions, because this is exactly what I had in mind. As I try to think through it, and I'm not confident that the way I'm thinking through it is valid, and that's why I wanted to have the discussion. So I know that I hear the 14.6 million of sales tax revenue that we're not receiving that we otherwise would if the SSUT tax were skewed
Fair.
towards the same as regular tax. Right? I sometimes I know that 10 or 11 million is the gross starting number we bandy about for RSA, and I know through some of our work sessions, we've already identified where we can chisel down 3-4 of that, and the reinforcement in your comments that the stock market gets a vote, and I don't think everybody realizes how concrete that vote is until the numbers people, the actuaries come in and tally it up. But certainly, it is impacting that number to the negative for us. Again, we're going to do it, so the question will become, all right, what are we not going to do? So we've got that 14.6, we've got, but so that I'm clear, that's normal growth that's reduced growth. Is that a correct phrasing of that? That's not a reduction, that's a reduction in growth of.
I'm going to let Ms. Standards follow me up and probably correct me, but you nailed it.
Okay.
If we would have collected the sales taxes as generated by our population, we would have received an additional, by our calculation, $14.6 million. This is a methodology we have shared with ADOR that they've never disputed. We actually think we may be a little bit conservative. So the theory is that if you would have received, that's the population we have would have generated that much more in sales taxes that would have been available to the city council.
Yes, that's correct. The idea of the 14.6 that we're missing out on right now is the transactions that are happening within our jurisdiction that we do not have control over the taxing authority or collections of. If that helps to create that picture. Yes, it would be growth on top of what we already collect.
Okay. So in my overly simplistic having a cup of coffee at home, as I'm trying to think through this, I'm going, well, ballpark, we've got a $200 million general budget. I mean, that's for talking purposes,
Sure.
right? I'm going, okay, well, if 14.6, call it 15 of that, and this is not going to be there, that's not correct. It's 15 that's not going to be part of the growth of that.
Sure, and yes, and you can think about it that way. So if it is 14.6 this year, next year that's probably 15.3,
Sure,
and then the next year.
We all know what.
Well, yes.
We all know what prices are doing, and of course that's a
Prices-
price-based.
But then also
calculation.
behavior is changing as well. The options that are available to the public, and then the public's behavior in interacting with those options is changing every day. There's way more available online than there ever has been, and there are so many more people that are taking advantage of that availability and access than ever have before.
And so fewer brick and mortar outlets to even serve as an alternative.
Well, think about this. I saw a restaurant that was opening up, which we're excited about, in Mr. Fell's district yesterday. And if you notice at the end of the article, what did they say their model was going to be? Using third-party apps to be able to distribute their goods and services. And so that means instead of being taxed at the city of Tuscaloosa sales tax rate and the counties, they're going to be taxed on SSUT. So this model is changing in such a way that it is eroding, especially growing cities. The more you grow as a community, you're being penalized because so many of our people are young. They have access, obviously, to broadband, and they have resources to be able to purchase online.
Who do we or the League of Municipalities or the Big Ten or whatever the appropriate we is have projecting what that line is going to look like? Because we know that line is not going to be arithmetic. All right, it's going to go like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That there's some point of invisible critical mass that defines when people would prefer to go out and physically shop, drive to Belk's and buy a pair of socks, versus when they'll just type it in.
I don't think
That line has got to look like that.
I'm not sure where that line is, but today, or in the last quarter of fiscal 24, 16.4% of people nationwide did their retail shopping online, or a portion of their retail shopping online. So that number has doubled since 2015.
That's what I'm talking about.
Even before COVID, that number was on a steady climb. Does that number get to 20%, 25%?
And how quickly?
And if there's no change in the law, it becomes catastrophic for cities in Alabama, especially cities that have a population of 15,000 and above, or they have a young population like a Tuskegee, a Troy, Jacksonville, where you have, because we know that 70+% of people who shop online are 34 and younger. And so the younger you are,
And we know that 40% of 40,000 of our population is 25 and under.
Think about this, Mr. Busby. You made what I thought was a very intuitive comment earlier at pre-council when you said, I don't want to know how much we spent at the Strip on Friday, Saturday, this weekend.
It's incalculable.
Okay? So we do that, though. Our theory of business, yes, and it is a business, our theory of business is that the revenues that are generated by the students equal the cost we will pay out on the other side for police and ESD and fire and all those other things. But that model doesn't work anymore. And why? Is because if the young people, and you can't blame them, are shopping online on their phones, theoretically, you would think we would get the tax on the delivery of that good, but we don't. It falls under SSUT. So in other words, we're expending a lot of resources in the central part of our city, and we actually come out on the losing end of that model in terms of direct sales tax revenue because of the way the state has constructed their SSUT scheme.
And to take it from, so the mayor's statistic of 16.4% of transactions happening online is really a nationwide statistic that's published by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So I'm going to take it down to a little bit more of a local picture for you, and that SSUT at the state level has grown. In 2022, it grew at 13%. In 2023, it grew at 14%, and in 2024, it grew by 11%. Those are staggering growth numbers that have never been seen except during heavily inflationary times within local collection rates. However, in fiscal year 25, when our collections rates have gone down, as the mayor mentioned, our Christmas collections is down 4.4%. The county's was also down 6.4%. So in the time when ours is going down, theirs is continuing to grow at a double-digit rate of 11%. So even in the localized picture, if that 16.4% of transactions that are happening online by the U.S. Department of Commerce, I do think that our localized picture, when we have, as Mr. Busby, as you mentioned very deftly, the lack of inventory in our local jurisdiction, the proclivity of the population purchasing online, and then also because there is the dearth of inventory, even the young people might not be the only ones that are shopping online, because now it is so accessible by everyone, and that Alabama just does not have the infrastructure for the retail sector in place that the rest of the country sometimes does. We are more precluded to be buying online. And so that growth rate is not slowing down, even though our local growth rates are slowing down significantly.
And Mr. Busby, if I can add one more thing to this, that and why you see cities, just not the Big Ten cities, but 50 plus cities now in Alabama come together. The state now allows these are, by the way, these are by regulatory actions and not even by legislative actions. If I shop at Walmart, I pay the Tuscaloosa sales tax rate. But let's say I use Walmart online, use the marketplace, Walmart online marketplace. And the goods I buy are taken by Walmart employees. They're put into a basket at that store, rung up at that store, delivered by a Walmart truck that is licensed here and has an employee of Walmart that is delivered to my home. It's delivered at the SSUT rate with the breakout where we get pennies. The ADOR has truly broken physical nexus as a rule of sales tax collection. And that's just not Walmart. That is Target 360. It's the DoorDash. It is all these third-party vendors, or they're companies who create a regulatory function, not regulatory function, they create a platform that is online, like Walmart Marketplace, that is able to circumvent local taxes.
And we're still providing all those same services for all these same things.
And in some cases, incentives.
But you know what, Walt, to your point, to Carly's point, this is not going to get any better because unless you have to have something, a lot of people are not going to go to a store and buy something. If you've got a luxury at Christmas time or something else, and you can order all your stuff online, get it shipped to your house. That's hurting regular business. The SSUT is what's applying to that.
Yeah.
We're making it not competitive for the brick and mortar businesses too, which is not fair because it used to be it was zero, remember? And then the state woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, look at all this tax revenue we're missing." Well, the state is getting their money, whether it's SSUT or sales tax. They don't see this. They're getting their 4%. Doesn't matter what it is. The rest of us are suffering with that, and I don't see the internet stuff is only going up. It's not going back because the technology, the things you can buy on the internet, you cannot buy here in Tuscaloosa.
Correct.
I mean, I've got a daughter, y'all know, in college at Alabama, and the parents and the girls ship stuff. I bet we have a package every day that the parents are sending stuff or they're doing, and it's not necessarily that they wouldn't buy it here. The stores aren't the
there.
same. You can't,
They're not
and the
stocked.
girls, all this stuff the girls are doing, I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm talking about Rent the Runway is a huge deal in college because you don't want to go buy a $500 dress. You can join Rent the Runway, for example, for $100, whatever it is, $100, and you can get all these dresses, and then you wear them and you send them back. Well, they're shipping them. So you're missing sales here in town now, and that's not going to change. In my opinion, you have more variety, more things that you can choose from. And our situation with this is only going to get worse.
Well,
In my opinion.
So
and let me, if I can add one thing
It's
to
gonna
it.
get better.
Even the current distribution is flawed. In Tuscaloosa County, 68% of the businesses that generate sales taxes in this community are in the city of Tuscaloosa. 68%. We only get 42% of the county distribution. They're 42%. Even though we're 68% of the businesses that generate sales tax. It is, and the portion that comes to the county is not divided by the 3-cent countywide sales tax. So we don't get 19% of that portion. Our schools don't get 20%, the county school doesn't get 25%, et cetera.
Talking about on internet.
Internet.
SSUT.
And so not only do we have a SSUT scheme that's exporting out dollars in our community, the way it's set up, we don't even get our rightful share of countywide sales taxes. Tuscaloosa only has 3 cents of sales tax, city sales tax. we depend upon that 19% of the county-wide sales tax as well. And Northport depends upon their 5%. So these flaws are complicated to the general public. But that's why, we continue to urge people, just because it's complicated doesn't mean we can't solve it.
Well, can the
So-
Department of Revenue, can they change? I mean, that makes no sense that, again, with the loopholes of the grocery stores and all this other stuff, because could they make a directive and change that? Or does the legislature have to step in and do something to make that change?
It's our theory that they have the ability to change that. And Mr. Holmes, I want to make certain I don't say anything that's inappropriate.
And I want to make sure the distinction is clear. We believe ADOR has regulatory authority to change who they're accepting as marketplace facilitators. The distribution and division of the SSUT collections are within state law and would have to be changed by the legislature.
Okay, I'd like to take these big sort of mega factors and then begin compressing them down into impacts on 26. So
Okay.
you and I, Mayor, joke about beer math, and again, beer math is, well, if we got a 200 million general budget and there's about 15 that's not going to be there from SSUT, and then there's another 10 or so into RSA without even trying hard, there's 25 million or so that's about 12.5% of a $200 million budget, and that's just big chunks. As we look towards the 26, I mean, skipping over the capital budget for a second, going on to general fund revenue, is there an order of magnitude? Is there a belt loop on the tightening that we've identified as where we need to be? And of course, that's important across the board. It's important in agency funding. The more we can telegraph out to them, here's what's going on, the better they can tailor their request. What's the thinking?
Well, and I hope this body and, I'm not sure whether the media will report on this or not, or certainly any of the public that's watching. I would ask you don't hold me to this because it's April 15th.
And I will reinforce, I planned this session so that we could talk openly. This is not a revelation of things that are planned and will happen. I wanted this to be a discussion.
I think
But that's where we sit today.
today,
Looking at this, that may totally change in 3 months, Mr.
I would like to reduce overall expenditures by $5 to $6 million
So 2.5%, 3%
on the
reduction.
general fund side. That would be to me where we need to get today, and then hold other costs down the line. Also, use some of the capital budget, maybe to pick up some of the equipment purchases, vehicle and equipment purchases that we know we'll need in fiscal 26, such as patrol vehicles, and maybe a few other large items that we know we will need in the fiscal 26 budget. So if you use the capital budget recommendation, which is we've used for capital assets in the past, that means you don't have to pick up that number when you put the operating budget out there. So today, I would tell you $5 to $6 million in cuts. That number could change. I don't see us. I know one of the rumors because we've been talking to our department heads about this for the last month or two. We don't have any plans for any firings or layoffs or anything like that. We believe we can do all of this through attrition, reduction in agency funding, defer other things off. We think we can probably accomplish it. That's where we are today. Now, again, one of the hesitations about having a discussion like this is things will change. And that's why I appreciate you prefacing by saying, let's don't hold anybody to anything we say today. This is what we know as of April 15th.
So, and I'm going to throw out two other thoughts that are not easily tucked into big parts of this, but one is we're heading to New York sometime, I don't, late spring, early summer, maybe, for our annual pilgrimage to the credit rating agencies. It occurs to me, and when I first came on council, you remember the big gathering down at the Mercedes Club, and the credit agencies came in, and who was it? S&P puts their finger in our chest and said, "We're lowering you from a AAA rating to a AA something or another." Do I remember that correctly?
I was not in my position at the time. I would say that's an accurate statement.
Mayor,
from what I'm aware.
And we're like, why? Then our numbers are great. And the answer was because of the liability in your fireman and police pension fund. And again, we said, here's the document signed by the governor and the legislature saying specifically, City of Tuscaloosa bears no liability for payment of these benefits under this plan. I'm still remembering correctly.
Yes, sir.
And the credit agency said, yeah, but we view it as a moral responsibility, not a legal responsibility. So we're holding you accountable on your credit rating. Check.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm just thinking as we go back up there, now we've done the hard work on that. I mean, now we have taken that uncertainty off the table at a fairly significant pain level. I think we take the offense with them on that and say, you said you were lowering it because of that. There you go. That's done.
Yeah.
We want it back up. I mean, I know that's an opposite mindset. We're going, oh, they don't. But again, I think that's the approach to take with them. We dealt with that. They identified it. We dealt with it, and it's hurt. But we're going to come out better for it, and it needs to be looked at.
I think you're right. I think we should take a great point of pride in doing that.
The other thing is, and I don't know, who is assessing, is there, every time, I started to say you open a newspaper, but nobody opens, sorry about that. Nobody opens the newspaper, but every time you catch the news or a blurb of it, you're seeing reductions in federal funding coming out of the actions taken. Who is assessing at the city level? Because I'm guessing that in all of our contracts that we execute, there is language that, according to the new guidances coming out, could trigger reductions in that federal funding if we don't meet the new guidelines coming out. Who's assessing that?
It's really more of a department by department, but it is something that is talked about consistently with our teams nearly every week at staff meeting. None of us know, again, what that liability is going to be. I think your biggest liabilities are going to be in departments like CNS. We literally, and please don't hold me to it, but we literally spend $700,000 to $800,000 a year in general fund money to get about $2 million in federal money. So we spend $800,000 in general fund money to get $2 million in federal money, because we've got to have the $800,000 worth of personnel to manage, oversee, and then do compliance on those federal funds. But it gets trickier, because if you said, well, the federal government says, first of all, you don't have a choice. If you don't take those federal funds, you don't get any other federal funds. So it's not as if you go, we don't like that deal, we're just not going to take it. You just would never get another grant for the airport or road project or whatever. The second problem is, let's say the administration cuts HUD funding altogether. We're still going to have to do compliance on all the federal funds that we've already put out. So it's not as if you can cut $800,000 worth of staff. So the answer is yes, we're monitoring it, but any reduction of federal grant funds is not as clean as I think it's talked out openly.
I can accept.
Does that make sense?
I can, yeah. Nothing is clean with federal funds. I think it came as a surprise to me that those tentacles reach out not only into what we do, but in the contract language of our contracts in what we sub out to others to do. And I didn't know if somebody is scrubbing that contract language.
Mr. Holmes, we've had several
Okay,
meetings
I'm
about,
glad,
Investigative monitors.
very glad to hear that, all right.
Yeah. But it's a real, I mean, it's, you know, again, we're in uncertain times, and we know that's a real risk that could be run.
Well, we're at our 4 o'clock deadline. Thank you. And again, last save rounds or alibis, if any of the other council at large members have a question or comment to put on the table.
No, I just wanna say, I sent this to the mayor last week, and look, we're all elected in our districts to, hopefully people will maybe listen. And I've been doing something for 2 weeks now, not only on my TV show every day, but also on my social media, reminding people, I know they're gonna get sick of it, but reminding people about SSUT, the importance of shopping local. Like I had the other day, I had a new suit on, I said, everything I got on today came from Belt, because I got in my car and went and bought it. And, because of the importance, you want a speed table, you want a new light, you want more policemen on
That's a good
the
idea.
street. And so, and I've been doing this consistently every day for about 2 weeks now, and, you know, I don't know if it's made one bit of difference to anybody, but it doesn't hurt to let each one of us do something similar, come up with some way, you know, every day you can make a difference about how you do it. You can make it funny, or you can make it, you know, say, you know, you want a new street light. How many times have you shopped online?
Right.
You know, just some things. But I think just collectively, everybody would do that. You know, and like the chamber, I mentioned somebody at the chamber, and I mentioned some agencies that were on my show last week. Tuscaloosa One Place, District Attorney's Office, you know, like about how serious this is, about, you know, y'all need to do your part in helping us too, get the word out. And I mentioned one time years ago, the chamber had a big thing, in fact, it was on TV all the time, about shop local. And it would use different parts of the city, shop local in this, because all your dollars stay here. I think, you know, the chamber could really help getting more aggressive in that type of advertising.
And your tax dollars stay here.
Yeah, that's right. But then, you know, it's just a suggestion, and I've actually enjoyed coming up with different ways to get it across.
It's a good idea.
But something to think about.
Well, I appreciate, you know, the council's support. You know, and I understand that right now, county governments across Alabama, the formula is very beneficial to them. But we being cities are the ones that did the infrastructure, that did the incentives, that created the sales tax and the retail, or helped to be part of creating that retail that pays for the services in our cities. You're never going to hear the city say, we need a share of the county's coal severance tax. I mean, you would never hear us say, you know what, those coal trucks come through the city, therefore we deserve half of the coal severance tax. Or
We
70.
could put a tax on them as they drive through.
And so, you know, I would just hope that the counties would give us the same grace of how we pay for our services.
Yeah.
That if we've earned it and our citizens have paid for it, then it should get to stay in the community. And I appreciate, you know, this council's support, and we're going to do everything we necessary to defend and protect our citizens' investments. And so hopefully in the next, here, let me close with this, Mr. Busby, and I again appreciate the grace, because I should have said this at the beginning. If we can get through the next 12 to 24 months, I really do feel positive. Things will move economically. I do think the issue of tariffs, one way or the other, will have been solved. And I do think at some point, whether it's legislatively or another route, that the issue of SSUT is going to slowly come to a head. Because you've got 50 plus cities, you probably have 100 plus school boards. There's a lot of people now who are really being hurt by this, and they're not getting the tax dollars they've earned. at some point that dam breaks. Now, how it ends up, I don't know, but I think in the end, it will be a positive thing. So if we're willing to do things the right way, as we've always done them, we will get through the next 12 to 24 months, and we'll continue to be an elite city when it comes to managing our resources. Thank you, Mr.
Mayor, I
Buffer.
would just like
Thank
to
you.
say this.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Ms.
to-
Howard.
To Kip's point, you know, when 311 has a lot of cute commercials, but I think it helps for locals to see us collectively talk about certain issues. Because it's not just something that's affecting us at a state level, but it's affecting us locally. So I like that if we had some commercials, I don't know who did that for 311, but those were, those are cute. You know, the baseball commercials, I don't know about the rest.
My favorite's the recycling.
Yeah, recycle.
Okay,
That's
is it
what I'm
The guy
talking
who
about.
picks up shakers after a ball game
Yeah,
and puts it in, next thing you know, that's what he wears all the ball
Yeah.
games.
Somewhere
seen it.
Richard's smiling.
That's very
Yeah,
clever.
okay, that's all
Yeah,
Richard.
that's
Okay,
fine.
but tell Dr. Rush we need one for local sales tax.
All right. Mayor, Ms. Standers, thank you very much. Is there a
Mr. Chairman.
gentleman, huh? Is there a
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? That would be you, Mr.